What's up, everybody? My name is Mitchell Brewer of Black Cat Sports, and today we've got something special here for you. We got to sit down and talk with Ryan Vargas, who is a part-time driver in the NASCAR Xfinity and Craftsman Truck Series. Ryan went out and scored his first top 10 in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series this past weekend at Texas Motor Speedway, driving the number 30 for On Point Motorsports. And I'm always fascinated by the perspective of part-time drivers in NASCAR. Just always fascinating to hear how their daily lives are and how that compares to one of a full-time driver and how they are staying on the grind even when they aren't racing. And I think Ryan gives a great perspective about that. He also takes us through his weekend this past weekend. And yeah, share some thoughts on the upcoming NASCAR weekend. You might not be racing, but hey, what better analysis to get about the upcoming weekend than from a NASCAR driver themselves? So, yeah, we did, important editor's note is we did have some video issues throughout the interview. I listened through it. All the audio is great. So I encourage you to stick through it, even though the video can get a little jumpy and cutty in some spots. But again, the audio is so worth it to hear, in my opinion. I hope you think so as well, too. It's a great conversation. I really appreciate that Ryan gave me his time to talk about a bunch of different things. And yeah, without further ado, here is Ryan Vargas. So first off, thank you for your time and congrats on your first top 10 in the truck series this past weekend at Texas. What does that mean to you to accomplish something like that with On Point and only your second race with that team?
No, it's awesome. I mean, these guys, they put in a lot of work to kind of, A, make sure the truck was good, and also B, make me better. I have a lot of learning to do still. The first half of the race wasn't my best, but, Bones and everybody, they kept working on the truck, but also keeping me in the game. I felt cozy in my Butler built seat, and they just kept working on a range line group Tundra, and we just kept getting faster and faster and faster as the race went on. And what made me happy was that at least at the end of the race, we were right in the middle of the pack, dicing it up with some really good trucks. And that was definitely when I felt our strengths came out. So learned a lot, got better, and I think that's all you could really ask for.
After your first race with the team, you had tweeted out something along the lines that you knew that this team was capable of top 10s. How good of a feeling is that for you to go out the very next race and go out and get that top 10 and kind of just have like see, I told you guys that we can do this?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a special thing to get top 10s at this level. I have two in the Xfinity series and now one in the truck series, which is insane to really think about. But I guess that just kind of goes to show what this team is capable of. I mean, there was a lot of that race on Saturday where I was just learning and learning and learning and learning because these things drive. I mean, I have 67 Xfinity starts and 2 truck starts, and I was very much having to break the mindsets of those 67 Xfinity starts to drive this truck. I had to break a lot of those things, and that was a very difficult thing. I shouldn't say difficult, but it was a very challenging and new thing for me. But these guys did a really good job getting me comfortable in our range line Tundra, and I'm very happy. And we had a lot of new partners on this weekend. PBI Industries. We had the Most Hated Apparel, a returning partner in Williamsburg Contracting. Just all the people that jumped on board like they did. It felt really good to get them all happy.
I mean, it's still early in the year, but you've had your share of ups and downs throughout the season already. How big is something like this for you where it just finally all works out right for you?
Definitely is a really big confidence booster. I mean, like we talked about, I took that chance at the end of last year. I left what I was doing and decided to do a little bit of a gamble on myself, join a team like On Point that, can go run, pretty competitively. And that was by design. I knew I wasn't going to race as much, but, this year was all about trying something. It was all about learning as much as I can, building on what I know, and getting out of my comfort zone. And I think I did a little bit of all of that this past weekend.
And you mentioned getting out of your comfort zone. I feel like it's one of those very tough things for NASCAR drivers, especially to step out of a full time opportunity and take a risk at yourself. And we've seen it pay off for other drivers before. But how, how like nervous and just pressure packed does that make every race that you actually are able to compete in for you?
Well, there's a lot of pressure, but it's a different pressure. There's pressure on me to step up, right? Um, these folks at On Point, we're a pretty competitive group, but we're also a small group. It's a single truck team. There's a good handful of people here that work really hard here at the shop, and for us to go out there, and race against the KBMs, the Nices, and the GMSs of the world, um, it's a big deal, especially when it comes down to those final laps there. But for me, most importantly, is like you kind of said, like you kind of hit on it. It is a bit of a pressure situation. I want to go out there and deliver for the people that support me, the Lyrgus Securities, the Critical Paths, the Williamsburgs, the Range Lines, those people who support and allow me to pursue this dream. It's now there's that, I guess you could say, mindset of, all right, now it's about clicking off some results here. It feels good to get a few now. I know that I have a lot of things to learn still, and I'm going to have a good handful of races here in these summer months once things get going. So it's going to get pretty crazy, especially when we get to the Darlingtons, the Mid Ohio's, and the Talladegas of the world.
You mentioned kind of that craziness. I feel like there's kind of like this little like stereotype right now with the truck series with how aggressive those races can be. And I was watching one of Haley Deegan's vlogs where she talked about where a lot of it is just surviving until the end. You've had two races in the truck series. Both races, you've kept your truck fairly clean. How challenging, on top of just trying to get the best overall finish, is that for you, in your opinion?
Well, we've done more than just keep it clean. That was the same truck we took to Atlanta. We took to Texas. Um, Same body and all. Just took the wrap off and put the new wrap on. But no, I mean, and that's a majority of the battle, and I attribute to my experience in Xfinity. You know what I mean? Those are long races. Those you go from the 200 to 250-mile races in trucks to the 300-mile races in Xfinity. That extra 50 miles, that's a difference. And if you're running at the end of those races, the results will sort themselves out, and that is ever more paramount in trucks. Everybody's so much more on top of each other. There's a lot of young guys racing against these veterans, and they clash. They go head to head. I mean, we saw, some really young guys tangled together with Matt Crafton in the truck race. I mean, it's like, if you can almost like play the mindset of being there at the end, but also taking what you can get, don't put yourself in too bad of a situation, but also take advantage of other people's mistakes. I think that's the big thing you could do there.
And kind of on a similar note, going back to your Xfinity experience, you've always kind of been with lower funded teams of the garage area. When you know that these races can be chaotic and kind of have a lot of attrition, how much pressure is there just to make sure that nothing bad happens to your own equipment just because you might not have the resources of a GMS, a ThorSport to quickly get all that repaired and back ready for the next race?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a pressure there, right? But you don't go into a race thinking about not crashing, right? You go into a race with the idea and mindset of, what am I going to get out of today? But you do need to you do need to have it in the back of your mind. If this truck is probably going to get used again coming up at its next intermediate race. I wouldn't be surprised if this was my Darlington truck. I don't know for sure, but it's a big deal, because now you're saving the team money, you're saving yourself, you're saving the team money, you're saving the team effort and time rebuilding a truck. Now they can go back and actually massage it, fix it up, get it even better than what it was. And you can build on that notebook. I mean, you're not learning if you're wrecked out in the garage on that 50.
And well, you're not racing like this weekend, you're not entered in any of these races. What does your schedule look like, and how do you continue to keep yourself ready for Darlington coming up?
For starters, I'm actually here at the On Point shop. I'm here just hanging out with these guys. I'm trying to help where I can and learn a little bit more, but I'm also just kind of doing my normal housekeeping here at the shop. I'm doing my emails, doing LinkedIn, doing interviews like this with yourself. And then I've been hanging out with Tanner, the driver for this weekend. He actually just walked in. We've been it's been good being a part of this organization because at the end of the day, if you're able to build a team atmosphere and continue working and building, it's only going to improve the results and the performance on track.
That's one thing that I've really noticed with a guy like yourself is that even when you're not competing, you're doing a lot to keep yourself involved in the sport, making sure people still see your name and make sure like a lot of like that LinkedIn social media type stuff where people are like, oh, hey, there's that Ryan guy again. I wonder what he's doing this weekend, even if he's not racing. Like you are very interactive with that. And I think that's something that I think has proven to be very important in NASCAR. And just from that mindset, does it ever get like kind of like tiring? Because it seems like, from my perspective at least, that you're always kind of on it. Like no matter what, it's always kind of what can I do to get more races? How can I keep myself out there? Is that kind of true?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want to avoid the fatigue, right? It's when you're constantly, doing the sponsor hunt, doing the selling, working, 5, 6, 7 days a week, trying to find different opportunities and finding ways to be involved. It can get a lot. It can become a lot, and I've experienced, that feeling before, but it's about finding that balance, right? And that's one of the big things that I've made a focus of this year, is trying to find that balance to go out so that anytime I am in the race car, I'm maximizing that opportunity. If I'm clear in the head and I'm able to go out there, that's what matters most. But then you also hit on being in front of people, right? I'm going to be at Bristol Dirt this weekend. I'm going to help out the On Point guys on Saturday. So, for me, it's important to be in that garage area because if you're out of sight, it's the classic saying: if you're out of sight, you're out of mind, and that's the worst thing you could be in racing is out of mind.
And while you're at the track, is that difficult for you to work with the team to help with another driver that's not yourself? I know you've been in this situation before with JD Motorsports. Just what's your perspective on that? Because I know you're not the only driver that's done this before, where you're putting in that time in the shop with the team. How does that like differentiate from what a regular driver might experience?
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on the situation, right? For me, Bristol Dirt was never on my schedule, right? So I'm just there to be a cheerleader and crew and just be there for the team and continue to help them and be a part of it. To me, this is almost a, you know, I wouldn't say like I'm trying to think of the right word here, but for me, it's just a good opportunity for me to be in the garage area, witness the team kind of at work with me not in it, right? Because when you're in the truck, you only see so much, when you're actually at the track and you're able to kind of observe or actually be a part of it, say if they need me to go and do adjustments and stuff, cool. Then that lets me know a little bit more as to how the operations go. Because what one team may do, another team does totally different. And that's something I've learned tenfold this year, going from the Xfinity team to the truck team.
And one last question for you, and this just is off of what I just saw you recently tweet with the Xfinity car at a Bristol Dirt on, I believe, like iRacing or something. What I was curious, just from a driver standpoint, what your thoughts on Bristol Dirt, and do you think that that should be something that Xfinity should be racing at?
Yeah, I mean, on the Xfinity side, I don't know. You know what I mean? It's all logistics, right? If it makes sense, then heck yeah, do it. But if it doesn't, then don't. That's the way I see it. You don't want to put the teams in a bad spot. But Bristol Dirt, it's a very hot topic in the sport, because obviously Bristol is one of our best racetracks, and now we're putting dirt on top of it, right? But you know, at the end of the day, you look at how things were in the 2019 spring race and on a clear day. I mean, it was, cloudy, but, clear. And then you compare that to last year's dirt race. The grandstands say it all. And I feel like the presence of a Bristol dirt race is I wouldn't call it a necessarily evil, but it's a necessary chaos, I guess you could say. It's that wild card, and that also adds to the allure of NASCAR. I mean, NASCAR is the only racing series in the world that race on ovals, road courses, dirt ovals, street circuits, super speedways, short tracks. I mean, it's easily the most diverse schedule in motorsports. And I think that in itself, when you win the championship in the Cup Series, you have earned it.
I totally agree with you on that perspective. I think especially the point about like just the overall grandstand type feel of like I think I totally agree with you. It just feels like it's something completely different. You have the race is now on Fox. It used to be on FS1, and there's just a more like big
It feels
fight.
like an event.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And I attended the dirt race last year, the Cup race. And I'll admit, I mean, everybody kind of when you think of like the next gen car and all that stuff, it being tossed onto a dirt track, you're kind of thinking to yourself, what? Like this is kind of wacky. But other than the unfortunate stoppages for rain and weather, that race was awesome. Like I was there watching it, and I was like, these guys are running the bottom, they're running the wall, they're running the middle lane. They're moving all over the racetrack. There was not a single preferred lane. And obviously, it moved to the top by the end of the race, but I mean, we're talking about running the top at a dirt race at Bristol. Like that's pretty cool. I mean, I remember the first race in 2021. It was a bottom. Everybody get to the bottom and hug that white line. This last year, they hit it right. I mean, it was a multi groove race, and so, um, you know, that's what I hope to see again. I think if the best thing that NASCAR could have is a good race at Bristol Dirt, not a slog where guys are just running into each other, just a good side by side battle.
I completely agree. And I think even if you look at like last year, like the finish, yeah, it was chaotic, but I mean like NASCAR's made on chaotic moments
Yeah,
like that. And I think that like something like that where the two leaders just wreck each other and it's just like who's gonna win? I think that's part of like the charm of NASCAR when you look at it from a grand scheme of things like that.
yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, that's all I got for you. I appreciate your time here today, and best of luck with the team this weekend. And but when you get back on track there at Darlington,
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
thank you.